Hey, it's Chris. Apple is set to announce the iPhone 15 lineup in just a few days on September 12. And today, we're gonna go through what you should actually expect, what you shouldn't expect, and whether or not you can expect any surprises. Basically, for Apple fans, the September events are always kind of like the yearly Super Bowl. So today, we're gonna treat it like that. We're gonna super overanalyze it, get really into the hype, almost like a sports network would do for the Super Bowl. And I promise that today, you're gonna end up learning or thinking about or realizing some things about this upcoming event that you've never thought of before. And I know that because I realized and thought of some new stuff as I was digging into the research here. But first, some really quick and exciting announcements because there's a lot going on at Daily Tech. First of all, I'm uploading several videos to my second channel, the Daily Tech Clips channel, almost daily. That's where I'll be uploading all of my reactions to the news that comes out on September 12th. Second, today I'm super excited to let you know you can officially pre-order my next course, Learning to Build a Successful Side Hustle. So you can save a ton of money if you pre-order the new course starting today. But let's dive into talking about this upcoming Apple event. This video is meant to be your definitive guide to this event. Apple's given this event the Wanderlust title, which is intriguing. Now, what I thought would be really fun, number one, and also useful today, would be to start by going back through Apple's previous 5 September events to kind of see what we can figure out and predict. And then in the second half of the video, we're gonna cover the predictions. In 2018, at the Gather Round event, Apple unveiled the iPhone XS series and the Apple Watch Series 4, and followed that up with an additional event in October, introducing some new iPads and Macs. In 2019, the Buy Innovation Only event marked the debut of the iPhone 11 series, as well as the Apple Watch Series 5, with no additional events held after that year. 2020 was unusual because the iPhone Series 12 was not announced in September at the Time Flies event, and I'm sure you can guess why. The September event that year focused on Apple Watches and iPads, while the iPhones that year were later revealed in October at the High Speed event. That was a busy year for Apple. There was an event in September, October, and November. 2021 gave us the California streaming event where Apple introduced the iPhone 13 series and the Apple Watch Series 7, and that was it for the year. The September event usually marks the end of summer, and that was also the end of Apple announcements for that year. And that brings us up to 2022 and the Far Out event, which featured the iPhone 14 series with no follow-up events. So based on the data for the last 5 years, it's actually a pretty good chance that Apple will have or could have a follow-up event to this year's September event. An 80% chance, actually. And the reason I'm bringing that up, other than it's kind of fun to look at the old event invitations as we look forward to the next one, is that the Wanderlust event could end up going a couple different ways. If Apple has lots of announcements, they may break things up into separate events. If there's not all that much to announce, we may end up with one single event that crams a lot of stuff in. And as soon as the event starts, you're gonna have a pretty good idea, based on the pace of announcements, what sort of a year end we're gonna have with Apple. If they get right into it and they start announcing things that usually would be saved towards the end of an event, like a finale, then you know it's gonna be a busy event where they're packing everything in. On the other hand, if they just kind of start out with a slow review of how certain things have gone over the year, different services, sales numbers, that sort of thing, then it's probably not gonna end up being a super action-packed event. Now, for all intents and purposes, the September event is an iPhone event. That's the main focus always. But that doesn't mean that Apple doesn't use their time in the spotlight in September to shine some light on a few other product categories. 80% of those last 5 events featured an iPad announcement of some sort. We got an AirPods announcement 20% of the time over the last 5 years. And actually, none of the last 5 September events had anything to do with a Mac announcement. And so actually, this is not the event to look forward to every year if you're counting on some new Mac hardware. New Macs usually get discussed in their own separate event later in maybe October or at WWDC. Apple's definitely gonna be talking about iOS though, even if it's just a mention, because the latest, greatest version of iOS is almost always released immediately after these events. Now we're talking about the official release because the public beta of iOS has been out for a while now, and actually this year it's been pretty stable. So if you can't wait until the official release comes out in a few days, you could snag the beta still. I would say the latest version of iOS is definitely a game changer. So many cool features in there. Speaking of game changers, how about learning to turn your skills into cash? Apple doesn't sell cheap products, and in today's economy, if you need some extra cash, the best way to do it is to start a side hustle. And I would love to teach you how to unlock financial freedom for yourself with my brand new course, Learning to Build a Successful Side Hustle. In fact, some of you know Daily Tech itself used to be a side hustle, and now it's my full-time job. If you pre-order today, you get $50 off the regular price. The new course comes out on December 1st. I can't wait for you to get your hands on it. The pre-order link is down in the description, or you can just go to thegreatonboarding.com. So now here comes the fun part of the video: what you should expect, what you shouldn't expect, and whether or not we might see any one more thing type of surprises and what they could be. In terms of what to expect, of course, the new iPhones, the iPhone 15 lineup, the 15, the Plus, the Pro, and the Max. And honestly, the unveiling of the iPhones is the whole point of this event. So that's what Apple's gonna spend the most time on. The A17 chip is expected to replace the A16. And of course, we're expecting the cameras to get some nice upgrades as well. Faster processors, better cameras, those are par for the course when it comes to Apple's September events. On the regular iPhones, yeah, you're gonna get some new colors. But then there's the Pro side of things, where things get pretty interesting. This year, we're expecting a titanium design that's exclusive to the Pros. Titanium, of course, is known for being strong, lightweight, corrosion resistant, so this could in fact be a more durable design than the materials that Apple has used in the Pros in the past, which obviously the stainless steel has been a fingerprint magnet. So for those of you who like to go caseless or use AppleCare as your case, basically, for lots of reasons, the new titanium Pro models could be very appealing, and also a good complement to the titanium build of the Apple Watch Ultra, which I happen to think looks really nice. But speaking of durability, I mean, I can notice a few hardly noticeable scratches in the finish. One thing we're definitely expecting is for the iPhone models to switch to USB-C. Why is Apple doing it? Why is it doing it now? Probably has a lot to do with the EU's regulations, but I guess the main benefit for Apple users would be that they could charge all their devices with one cable. Macs charge with USB-C, the newest iPads charge with USB-C, and so if the iPhone falls in line too, then you can finally have that one cable to rule them all. And along with this switch, we could easily see some updated accessories like AirPods cases, along with maybe the MagSafe battery pack, make the switch from Lightning to USB-C as well. Some of the most exciting features are probably gonna have to do with the camera. We had a 48 megapixel main camera last year, but this year, the 15 Pro Max and Max only is rumored to be getting a periscopic zoom. Or a periscope zoom, if you don't know, is an optical zoom, so not a digital zoom. And what's cool about a periscopic zoom is that it lets you get closer to your subject with that optical zoom without making your phone thicker. Now, the actual rumor floating around is that the iPhone Pro Max's zoom could go out to 6 times, or 6x zoom, which would effectively more or less double the zoom that we have right now on the Mac, so not an insignificant upgrade. And the other big rumor for the Pros is that the mute button could be replaced with an action button of sorts, similar in function perhaps to the action button on the Apple Watch Ultra, maybe inspired by the Ultra. I know I've seen comments already where some people are like, I'm really gonna miss that mute button because I used to use it like a fidget toy and just click it up and down all the time when I was bored. But plenty of other people have said, oh, I can't wait to use that as a camera shutter or as a quicker way to get into the camera instead of having to go through the lock screen with that software shortcut. And then finally, in terms of the Pro design, not a lot's gonna change, but you might expect them to nudge the current design forward ever so slightly with some smaller bezels. Now, the other big hardware announcement we're expecting this year would be the Apple Watch Series 9 to replace the Series 8. But in terms of the actual industrial design, it doesn't sound like you should expect a whole lot to change. If anything, the changes are likely to be very minor. If there's a headline feature for the Series 9, it sounds like it's gonna be some sort of new sensor or sensors. Maybe a blood pressure monitor, maybe an electrodermal activity sensor, maybe a bioimpedance sensor for measuring body composition. Now let's be honest, a lot of people view the Apple Watch as a health device. Yes, it can do reminders and notifications, and you can make phone calls and listen to podcasts. And yeah, it's good for fitness. A lot of people do view it as a fitness thing, but for a lot of people, it's all about the health. So even if the design doesn't change, the addition of a key new sensor or a couple new sensors would really push things forward for a lot of people. So if you're going off the latest rumors, those are the two biggest announcements that are expected on the hardware front. And in just a short while, we're gonna get to whether or not you might be able to expect any one more thing, sort of surprises, or maybe some just additional things that aren't a big one more thing surprise and what those could be. But first, let's talk about what not to expect. As I said, don't expect any new Macs. Now, if Apple decides that there's some really interesting Mac hardware to release, it could come in October, but it could also be that Apple feels like just putting out some press releases, which they did in 2022 for the new 10th gen iPad and the M2 iPad Pro. If we do have a follow-up event focused on Macs after this iPhone event, then you could definitely expect some information about the next M series chip, which would be the M3. If you just kind of casually follow Apple news, you've kind of been out of the loop, maybe your head's been under a rock somewhere, and you're like, Maybe we're gonna see a foldable iPhone at this event. Let me just let you know, there's no credible information that there's gonna be a foldable iPhone anytime soon, much less at this particular event. For those of you hoping that a new version of AirPods Pro would hit this year, that's not looking too likely either. Now, something Apple's really been diving into in recent years has been services. So we have Apple One now. And if you're hoping for additional services that you can pay extra every single month for coming this year, then I'm sorry, you're gonna have to keep your money stuffed in your wallet because it doesn't look like any services are planned to be announced this year. There are some new games though coming to Apple Arcade, and Apple might be talking about them. I know a lot of people are talking about Cypher 007, the new Bond game. So maybe we'll hear about that and some updates to some of Apple's other services in the beginning part of the event. But now we get to the part of the video I know a lot of people are excited for, and that is thinking about what surprises might be in store for this particular event. Now, let's just get this out of the way right away. We're not expecting, based on the rumors, any kind of one more thing sort of announcement. Apple recently talked about Apple Vision Pro. That was a big deal. And so we might get some updates about that. But the rumors are not indicating that some other major curveball is headed our way that would merit a one more thing sort of inclusion. But that doesn't mean there aren't gonna be some surprises. There most definitely is gonna be something that slipped through the radar that nobody saw coming. And Macworld actually put out a great article talking about some surprises that they're hoping to see. One of which would be the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which the rumors have been speculating is on the way and could come in a new black color. But the real interesting rumor has to do with Apple potentially using it as an occasion to introduce a magnetic band attachment of some sort, which would be very different than the current system of how Apple Watch bands are swapped out. Now, something that might be kind of plausible that would actually be really interesting to see at this event would be some updated AirPods Max. The Max is getting a little long in the tooth and it could benefit from a second gen refresh. It's also been a little while since the AirTag was introduced. That could be something we could see an update on. It could be that Apple's gonna come out with a way to sort of address some of the privacy concerns that have been swirling around AirTag use. And then what we would all consider a major surprise at this event would be to see an iPhone 15 mini. Now the mini was last out on the 13 and it looks like it's going away, and it seems to have gone the way of the Dodo, perhaps permanently, but it had some fans out there, some diehard fans, and you never know, Apple might surprise us with the mini. So there you go, that's what to expect, what not to expect, and some potential surprises for this event. And honestly, I hope that we get surprised with something that nobody's even thought of or imagined before. Whenever that happens, it's always the best. But leave me a comment, I wanna know what you're most looking forward to, what's got you excited or doesn't have you excited. Don't forget to check out Learning to Build a Successful Side Hustle. The pre-order can save you so much money. Before you get out of here, make sure you're subscribed to our second channel, the Clips channel. Don't forget, we have a newsletter as well, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later.